Welcome to our first stream in a long while. I'm Laurel with Building Momentum, and as you can see, we are in not our normal place. So we're doing a lot of really exciting stuff right now. We're about to move, we are moved into our new space, the garden, and we are currently building out this place. So if things start to get noisy or loud, I'm gonna just go ahead and say sorry, but that's also just how it is. We're a messy, loud bunch. So today we're going to be talking about LEDs. Now, LEDs are these little guys. So here, I'm going to show you guys this up close. This is an LED. Now, this is the most basic version of one you can actually get. And you're going to notice that it has two different length legs. That's because it has a positive and a negative direction. And the electricity, when you plug this in, can only flow in one way. So it's actually going to flow in through the positive leg on the long one, which is called the cathode. And it's going to flow to the anode, which is the negative lead. That's because LEDs are actually diodes. So that means that they only let current flow in one direction. And this is really useful because we figured out that when we use this diode and we give it enough voltage, it'll actually start to glow. So right down here, I've set up a really basic circuit. What it is I've taken my Arduino and I have taken from the 5-volt power supply to the ground. You can kind of see it right there, if it'll focus for me. I've taken my 5-volt and my grounds, and what I'm doing in my little breadboard circuit that I threw together right before the stream is I'm taking my 5-volt and I'm putting it into the potentiometer. And then as I change the value of the potentiometer, the LED that I've set up will glow. And I made sure that I put the positive in the middle of my potentiometer so that way that is where the electricity is entering, so it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what happens when I change this. So right now it's off, and as I start to turn it up, you see it start to glow a little bit, and then it gets brighter and brighter as that value on my resistor, because the potentiometer is just a variable resistor, goes down. And so now it keeps getting brighter. Oh, and there it is. That's the brightest it can go. And the reason that it's actually working so well though, is because I've got protection on that circuit. Now, I'm going to show you guys what happens if you don't have any protection for the circuit, if you don't use any sort of resistor. I've got a 9-volt battery right here. I've got my LED from before. This is the negative side, the big one, and this is the positive. I'm going to touch the positive lead to the positive side and the negative lead to the negative side. And I want you guys to watch really close on my table camera, okay? So I'm going to do that and watch the LED, see what happens to it. Do you see the pop? So this is now useless to me. It is now dead. So I accidentally plugged it into my power supply directly, this 9-volt battery. And in doing so, it pretty much took on too much current. And when it has too much current flowing into it, it pops like that. It lights up for just a hot second, and then it's gone. So that thing's pretty much trash now. It's broken forever. It's very sad. But it's a good thing those things are only like a cent. We can get, though, a lot more complicated with these LEDs, and this is when we get to do some of the really cool stuff. So next, I'm actually going to undo this whole circuit. I'm going to undo my power supplies and take these out. Don't need that anymore. Next, I want to show you guys this. This is a strand of what we call RGB LEDs. Now, RGB, for those of you who it's maybe been a while since your last art class, is red, blue, green. And what this means is that these are actually, there's 10 LEDs on here. Let me show you in the close-up. And on a single LED, it's hard to, I have to do everything backwards in the camera. So that is a single LED. And it's got a capacitor there for protection. So that way, when I dump a bunch of current into this, I don't pop it like I just did with that last cheap one, because these are a little more expensive. I actually have 3 inputs on these. I can add a 5 volts power supply, so that's going to be 5 volts. I can supply that off my Arduino. I need a ground, and then you see that DO-DI connection? That's actually because at the beginning of my circuit, DI stands up for data in. And then after I put data into one of my circuit, into one LED, DO stands for data out. Oof, this is not focusing for me right now. I'm trying to show you guys. Come on. All right, well, you'll just have to take my word for it. When I use these LEDs, they are programmable essentially. They don't have any memory. They don't remember what you told it, but you can tell it which LED you're talking about. So I can say 1, 2, 3, which one of the first 3 I want. I send it, I have my Arduino tell it, okay, I want to go to LED number 2. And then I get to give it 3 values for RGB. And those values can go from 0 to 255. That is just standard color channels. If you want to start looking into like image data file types, that you can understand more about it and why it does that. But all you need to know is that it goes from 0 to 255. So if I say I want 0 on the red channel, 0 on the blue channel, and 0 on the green channel, that means that they're just going to stay off. But if I send it 255 on the red, green, and blue channels, on all 3 of them, it'll turn on to full white, because that's how color mixing goes. But if I wanted them to be red, I would send it 255 on the red channel and 0 on the other 2. And so just like, elementary school art class, you have to mix your colors and figure out what proportionalities you want to get to the color you want to have. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up. All I'm doing with this is I'm going to plug in my orange wire into my 5 volt supply. I'm going to plug in my ground to my ground. Oh, you see it flash just then? And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys my Arduino code for this. So, the first thing you have to do when you want to start programming these guys is that you want to probably go download the Adafruit NeoPixel library. A library is essentially a dictionary for stuff that wasn't included the first time around in your program language. So right now I'm using Arduino, and when Arduino comes, when you freshly download it, it doesn't actually know how to control LEDs. What it's gonna know is how to send voltage to pins, like right here with their defined pin 10. So I download the NeoPixel library, and it acts like maybe a thesaurus is a better definition. It acts like a thesaurus. It tells Arduino how to do what I want it to do in the language that Arduino knows. So it kind of acts as a translator. And so it just makes my life easier, and it makes it a lot easier because you can see it comes with these things called functions. A function is just pretty much telling it's a way to tell a computer a whole list of things to do. So like down here you can see my full function set up, and instead of having to write all this code, I only have to write 1 line. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and plug this into pin 10. Okay, and I cheated because I already had this uploaded on there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and verify my code works, upload it. It's gonna go off for a minute, and now it's back on. Oh, and look at that. You can see kind of the reflections more so because my webcam is kind of little too bright. It's a little bit too bright for my cameras, but you can see kind of how it's doing it. It's changing these colors. I've got 10 pixels here. And if you see in my code, I had to tell it which pin I was plugging into. I chose to plug into pin 10. And then this is my declaration. Essentially, I'm saying that this strip exists. I'm telling the Arduino brain that this is a strand of LEDs that exists, and I have to tell it how long it is, what pin it's attached to, And then these two values are just kind of standardized. When you go, and if you guys are doing this yourselves at home, you can go and pull up this the example sketch, which is found right under File, Examples. Oops. And then NeoPixel. Just use the strand test. Oh, you guys can't see that. Now I feel silly. Oh well. If you go under the examples under the File tab, you'll be able to find it, and it'll just kind of give you these values. And Adafruit has a great set of comments in their code that explains what every single line does. You can kind of see some of it right here. So I have my Arduino running through this loop, and it's doing all of these in order. And it's looking pretty good, but this isn't just the only format that LEDs come in. You didn't think it was stopping here. The really cool thing about these LEDs is that they're something called individually addressable. So on the cheap version of LED strands, they are usually all one color. So if I have a strand of LEDs, on the cheap versions, the ones that are not individually addressable, there's only two inputs, 0 and a voltage. That voltage you can range from 0 to 255, and it pretty much converts that into an understanding of what color you want it to be. So you can set the entire strand to some value on the RGB scale, but you won't be able to set each individual pixel. So on this one though, I get to do whatever I want with each one, because I can send that voltage value to each individual LED. And they come in a lot of different formats. I'm going to show you guys these in a hot second, but you can get them in a ring, or if you really want to get complicated, you get a matrix. And each one of these is essentially like a pixel on a screen. So you remember those really old video games, like classic Mario Brothers or something? They looked really blocky because the characters were made out of 8 pixels per square, hence the name 8-bit. This is kind of like that. This is an 8x8 matrix, so this could be 1 pixel in a game of Super Mario Brothers. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up the ring for you guys, and we're gonna see how that looks, because it's essentially very similar code. So going back to my Arduino window, I'm actually going to flip over to another screen. Okay. So this is my NeoPixel screen. What I'm actually going to do is, you can see here I've defined pin 2 as the pin that I'm going to control the ring with. So I'm going to unplug my old strand. That has to turn off now. And I'm going to start with plugging in my 5-volt supply.
Nice to meet you.
And my ground. And then I'm going to plug this into pin 2. And now if I upload my new code, it's going to send it to it, and look at that, it turns on. Love it when that happens. And so you can see it's kind of shifting through all these colors, and it's acting as if it is just a strand of LEDs, but it's in a circle. It's the same sort of math, it's the same stuff. I use the same library as you can see here. It's just that the library has the wheel function in it, because the library does all the work for you. It's awesome. And so it's just this program just tells it to cycle through the rainbow function with 24 pixels, because this is a 24 pixel ring. So it's pretty cool. You can use it for a lot of stuff. I mean, think of all like the projects you may have been like trying to figure out how to make a strand of LEDs bend into a circle. Well, instead of having to cut them out piece by piece and glue them and solder them and all that stuff, you can just buy these guys. And they actually have even smaller sets. If you guys hold on for a second. This is my box of LEDs. So they even come even smaller. So you can see right there. And I could actually be stacking them inside of this. A lot of people have done stuff like that before. And so you can have concentric rings that ended up looking really cool when you set all of them together. But that still doesn't get us Mario. So we want to hook up this matrix. All right, this is our 8x8 matrix. I'm gonna hook this up to it, and we're gonna see if we can get that working too. So just gonna unplug that right there. And now you can see, actually, I'm gonna show you guys on the back of this. Ooh, if you'll focus. All right, you see D in, that's our data in pin. And then we also have a plus 5 volts and a ground. If you'll focus again. Come on. All right, and then in this opposite corner of it, that is gonna, you can't really see it right now, but, ooh, come on. Well, we have our data out, our plus 5 volts, and our ground. Ah, there it is. Oh, it was upside down. Yeah, so data out. So that means we could be setting these up in a row. I'm gonna show you guys what each one does first, and I'm gonna show you what happens when you put a bunch of them together. Okay, so for this one, let's go into our Arduino Code. I'm gonna swap images. Gotta pull up the other one. All right, there it is. Okay, now because this is a matrix and it's actually 64 LEDs, you need a bit more code to take care of it. I've actually imported 3 libraries here. And I've set pin 6 as the one that's going to control the whole thing, which is really awesome that you can use just one pin to control 64 individual pixels instead of having to use one pin per pixel, which would be 64 pins. And the Arduino Uno does not have 64 pins. You'd have to get the Mega, or I don't even think that one has 64 pins. That one's up in like the 50s. But anyways, that's a discussion for another day. I'm going to go ahead and plug in my ground and my 5 volt. And then I'm going to connect this. I said pin 6, so I'm going to plug this into pin 6. Oops, and it's actually lighting up already because I have my old code set to run on my Arduino. But let me upload this new stuff and we'll see what it does. Okay, it's uploading. And, oh, now it went off. So, there it is. And you can actually see that it's got a scrolling message on it. But just one pixel by itself, or one matrix by itself, it's kind of hard to have a whole image, you know? We got it working, which is fantastic, but it takes all of this code. So this is actually all that this is doing right now. It's filling the screen with 0. It builds a cursor, and then I'm actually sending it howdy. And it's actually gonna have to go through, and what it does is that it actually addresses each pixel and tells it whether it needs to be on or not. And then I'm also changing the color that I'm doing it with. But, like I was saying, it's kind of boring just to have one square. So I want to show you guys what happens when you have a whole bunch of them. Say hello to my sign. I like my sign. It's a very bright sign. This is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these matrix, all set in a row. And I have it welcoming people to our new space. This was actually up in our old space, and I finally decided to bring it over, A, so I could show you guys, and B, because this is our new home, and we should have, you know, our home stuff here. And so it says building momentum, it says the tech garden, and welcome. So who even needs a receptionist? We've got our friendly little LED sign. And this is actually all controlled by an Arduino around the back. I'm gonna see if I can show you guys it. I'm kind of restricted, so you sort of see it right there. And then you see how they're all glued together. We glued them at angles against some wood just so we could get that nice rounded look. But here's the thing. The Arduino is great for telling the LEDs what to show, but it's not really great at powering them. I've only shown you guys really small examples, so I didn't overload it. But the Arduino can only put out, you know, about 70 milliamps of current. And that's not really good for all of our purposes. So on this guy, when we have 6 of these as opposed to just 1, we have a little power supply regulator. This is actually just plugged into a regular wall socket. And then I take the 3 wires and I run it up, and these are powering each of our slides. And so that's just because we needed more current and that the Arduino couldn't power that. So instead of having it plugged into the 5 volts and the grounds, we have it plugged into that. So those are just some things to keep in mind when you're working on your LED projects. If you're trying to light something really big or a lot of something, you're going to want a separate power supply from your Arduino. Remember what I said about construction? That's probably just about it. If you guys have any questions about LEDs or Arduino or any of the stuff that we've got going on here, or even when the next stream's gonna be, feel free to email me. My email address is laurel@buildingmomentum.com or .us. We hope you guys enjoyed the stream. We're hopefully going to be doing a whole bunch of these. If you guys have a topic that you'd like to see coming up soon, definitely let us know. Thanks for having us, and it's good to be back.